we find ourselves in this moment where the tensions over who do we take ourselves to be have in some ways overrun our politics. And it makes sense that in the moment of betrayal, in a moment in which there is kind of backsliding, that there would be a battle over the story we tell about ourselves. And so these people, those persons who want to argue against what they call critical race theory or deny the relevance of 1619, they want a story to justify their current practice. They're trying to give an account of the America that they desire, that they're clinging to. They believe that America must remain a white nation in the vein of old Europe. And so they don't want to confront our actual history, so they have to redact it. And they're doing it in real time. So we're experiencing it right now. This idea that to tell the truth about who we are somehow makes us more divided is actually the language to maintain the status quo. And in some ways, we cannot become a better people. We can't become a better nation if we don't confront the truth of what we've done. If we don't, those ghosts will haunt. They will continue to choke the life out of this democracy. And so if you refuse, I say this all the time, if there's a lie at the heart of your relationship, a lie, and you think you're going to improve your relationship without addressing the lie, I got a cheap apartment in Brooklyn to sell you, right? So it seems to me honesty is at the heart of imagining America anew. And that requires confronting our evils, confronting the ugliness, the shards that lie beneath our feet. But it seems that people want innocence. They clamor for an innocence in order to protect their virtue because they don't want to confront who they actually are. And you remember now, Reconstruction begins to collapse after the Compromise of 1877, a compromise that Senator Ted Cruz invoked on the floor of the Senate as they were debating the certification of the 2020 presidential election. What happens over this period of time, which leads to in some ways, the death, the murder of radical Reconstruction? There's an all-out assault on Black voter participation. There's an attempt to disenfranchise Black folk. There's an attempt to gut the 14th Amendment, an attempt to undermine the 15th Amendment. And so we get in response to this attempt to build a radical multiracial democracy. What do we get? We get Jim Crow, legal segregation, a legal regime that would not be overturned until 1954 with Brown v. Board. And then that would be contested. What else do we see, Zerlene? We see convict leasing, another form of slavery, where the police, the repressive arm of the state, would be used to conscript Black labor to help build cities like Birmingham. What else did we see? We saw the ideology of Anglo-Saxonism, an ideology of white supremacy used to justify America's imperial ambition. At the very moment in which we're consolidating Jim Crow in the South, the Philippines, Haiti, Cuba, right, coming in under U.S. rule. So part of what we see then, and let me say this really quick, there is not just a Klan, because remember, 1871, the federal government tries to remove the Klan. But once the Klan is dispersed, you have localized attacks on poll workers, individual attacks on people who are operating at the ground level of our democracy. Sounds familiar? Absolutely. So basically what we're seeing in a moment where the nation was reaching for what it would mean for a genuine multiracial democracy to take shape, not just backlash, that's not the right word, betrayal and violence attends it. So the past is not past, as Faulkner would say, right? It's not even past. I had a conversation with my good friend, Professor David Blight at Yale University. He reminded me of this Baldwin quote from 1956, and I paraphrase. He says, it's easy to say that all men and women are equal before the eyes of God. It's not so easy to say that all men are equal before the eyes of men. And here we know we're going to continue to battle over the 14th Amendment. We hear Republicans in this odd, murderous way invoking, and I say murderous because they're slaughtering the intent of the 14th Amendment, invoking it to justify the racial order of things. We know that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was aimed to fulfill the promise of the 15th Amendment. And just think about it. 16 years later, Zerlina, when the Voting Rights Act is up for reauthorization in 1981, Ronald Reagan reluctantly gives his support. But he says that the Voting Rights Act should be amended. What does he mean? He said, we need to strip it of its pre-clearance clause. That same logic in 1981 is the very basis of the Shelby v. Holder decision in 2013. And what we're seeing now with the gutting and basically the undermining of Section 2. has always been this issue. What will be the place of these former slaves in the body politic? Well, that question is always the wrong question when you imagine the country as a genuinely multiracial democracy. It's only the right question if you think that the nation belongs to white people.
Your wish that we would invest again in the idea of big government solutions. I wonder if it might not be the case that that makes sense in terms of mobilizing Black America and other communities of color. But I think you are right on, and I think it does require some sentimentalism, if that's what it is, that white folks, it's both emotions and narratives about our country. And when you have to like redo the narrative that you were raised on and your whole identity is wrapped up in it, there's huge emotional blocks to that. There's fear.
Right.
You talked about fear. There's shame. There's new research on like humans don't like feeling shame. We just will avoid it. And if we have power, we will avoid places and arguments and politics that make us feel shame. So I'd like to see big government group therapy for white people. I don't know if we can legislate it, but we need it in order to deal with the emotions that require us to change the narrative and therefore to show up and vote in the way we're not going to vote until we've shifted the narratives and dealt with the emotional resistance to shifting the narrative. So if you have ideas on that.
I'm worried about corporate power and big money.
Yeah.
It's to their interest to finance demagogues and to play on the fears, especially of the lower middle class white people who have lost also. And I just wondered what.
No, I think first of all, you just spoke truth. You just spoke truth.